We've come to Buckingham Palace in highly unusual circumstances. Normally,
you see a little bit in the foot and the hand, so he's already twitching. We don't really get to see him come in at all. And as most people have already claimed, he's being deceptive. Let's see if we can't find out the story behind that deception.
we'll be discussing your work, your duty. We'll come on to that. But today, you've chosen to speak out for the first time. Why have you decided to talk now?
Because there is no good time to talk about Mr. Epstein and...
I've also read a lot of comments about these blinkings. It's just indicative of stress. And as we see just an innocuous question of why, the hesitation, think about it, stress, 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 stress. Without more, that's all it's indicative of. Stress, high stress. And since we're starting out that way in high stress, we kind of have to push this one to the wayside as just an indicator of stress.
All things associated. We've been talking to Newsnight for about 6 months about doing something around the work that I was doing. And unfortunately, we've just not been able to fit it into either your schedule or my schedule.
Believe me, look, but he's coming back. His body is literally getting away. I would take that as an excuse.
Until now, and actually it's a very good opportunity.
Until now, and you see the head with the negative, slight negative back and forth, rapid, a lot of stress. So we're seeing more than one indicator, and you always have to have more than one indicator. Something has pushed him to this now moment. We don't know. We can speculate because we do know that Epstein used blackmail as his primary income, and we have no idea what happened to that information afterwards.
And I'm delighted to be able to see you today.
As you say,
all of that given his stress. Stress in the forehead look stayed there the entire time until he was done talking, and then it came down. Oh, it's over. Not quite, but that part is over.
all of this goes back to your friendship with Jeffrey Epstein. How did you first become friends? How did you meet?
Well, I met through his girlfriend back in 1999, who, and I'd known her since she was at university in the UK. And it would be, to some extent, a stretch to say that...
That's really odd. He's talking about something, you know, doing. And so you would expect for the doing part of the brain to be engaged. And instead, we're getting, you know, remembered speeches. So now we're planting the base that he has prepared for this interview all the way down to even just the basic story of how did you meet. Now, a couple of reasons people do that. One, they don't want to go off script. Two, they're hiding the real story.
That, as it were, we were close friends. I mean, we were friends because of other people. And I had a lot of opportunity to go to the United States, but I didn't have much time with him. I suppose I saw him once or twice a year, perhaps maybe maximum of 3 times a year. And quite often, if I was in the United States and doing things, and if he wasn't there, he would say, well, why don't you come and use my houses? So I said, that's very kind, thank you very much indeed.
We're getting into areas that this is mixed. And because he's trying to be so nonchalant with it, but he keeps going to his remembered talking points, speech, whatever you want to call it, this is all portrayal. It makes you sit there and wonder if you're going to lie this much over even the most basic facts. How did you meet? How often did you see him? That in his mind, the truth is much more damaging.
But it would be a considerable stretch to say that he was a very, very close friend. But he had the most extraordinary ability to bring extraordinary people together. And that's the bit that I remember.
Oh, just from the basic information, I just sit there thinking the most extraordinary way to bring them all together. And he's not looking on her full on. You see his eyes are actually turned because he's sideways to her. It's the most extraordinary way to bring us together. Really, what way is that? Blackmail. But it's good because we all get together.
Going to the dinner parties where you would meet academics, politicians, people from the United Nations. I mean, it was a cosmopolitan group of what I would describe as
well, that was very interesting. As we go down,
parties where you would meet academics, politicians, people from the United Nations.
He stays down, so he's avoiding eye contact. And we don't know what's going on the outside that is triggering this interview, because we do know from his body language something is triggering this interview. And now we see an avoidance of naming different kinds of people. Not their names, but different kinds of people. And he doesn't look up when doing it. This is all part of his remembered speech. So remember, this is all planned.
I mean, it was a cosmopolitan group of what I would describe as US eminence.
Was that his appeal then? Was that what you... Because you were perceived by the public as being the party prince.
He also keeps giving this negative. Was that his appeal? Did you stay at his place? Negative. Whenever it mentions him, we're starting to associate he has negative towards Epstein. Negative.
I don't know why I've collected that title, because I never have really partied. I was single for quite a long time in the early 80s. But then after I got married, I was very happy. And I've never really felt the need to go and party. And certainly going to Jeffrey's was not about partying. Absolutely not.
You said you weren't very...
The negative is in all of this. And at the very end of this, when he talks about Epstein, his body goes still, the negative and comes in really strong, and he's trying to get away, still in negative.
Would you describe him as a good friend? Did you trust him?
Yes, I think I probably did. But again, I mean...
There was truth in that.
I don't go into a friendship looking for the wrong thing, if you understand what I mean. I'm an engaging person. I want to be able to engage. I want to find out. I want to learn. And so you have to remember that I was transitioning out of the Navy at the time. And in the transition, I wanted to find out more about what was going on, because in the Navy, it's a pretty isolated business because you're out at sea the whole time. And I was going to become the Special Representative for International Trade and Investment. So I wanted to know more about what was going on in the international business world. And so that was another reason for going there. And the opportunities that I had to go to Wall Street and other places to learn whilst I was there were absolutely vital.
He was your guest as well. In 2000, Epstein...
Yeah, that was all a lie. Not the events themselves, but the reasoning. So he's hiding his reasoning.
He was brought right into the heart of the royal family at your invitation.
But certainly at my invitation, not at the royal family's invitation. But remember that it was his girlfriend that was the key element in this. He was the, as it were, plus one to some extent in that aspect.
Am I right in thinking you threw a birthday party for Epstein's girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell, at Sandringham?
No, it was a shooting weekend.
A shooting weekend?
Just a straightforward shooting weekend.
But during these times that he was a guest at Windsor Castle at Sandringham, the shooting weekend, we now know that he was and had been procuring young girls for sex trafficking.
We now know that. At the time, there was no indication to me or anybody else that that was what he was doing. And certainly, when I saw him either in the United States, when I saw him in the United States, or when I was staying in his houses in the United States, there was no indication, absolutely no indication. And if there was, you have to remember that at the time, I was patron of the NSPCC's Full Stop campaign, so I was close up with what was going on in those time about getting rid of abuse to children. So I knew what the things were to look for, but I never saw them.
So you would have made that connection because you stayed with him, you were a visitor, a guest on many occasions at his homes, and nothing struck you as suspicious?
Nothing.
During that whole time?
Nothing.
Just for the record, nothing. And that negative comes out really big. Takes in a breath, he goes back. Hold it, just lying the entire time.
You've been on his private plane.
Yes.
You've been to stay on his private island.
Yes.
You've stayed at his home in Palm Beach.
Yes.
You've visited Ghislaine Maxwell's house in Belgravia in London.
Yes.
So in 2006,
That's actually a really, really good indicator. So this blinking. Oh, he blinked. He's lying. That's not how it goes. But it's a really good stress indicator. So she's listing all these places and he's yes, yes, yes. But he gets to this last one and a lot of stress comes with that one. It would be interesting to find out why so much stress goes with that one place. What happened there?
May, an arrest warrant was issued for Epstein for sexual assault of a minor.
Yes.
In July, he was invited to Windsor Castle to your daughter Princess Beatrice's 18th birthday. Why would you do that?
Because I was asking Ghislaine. But even so, at the time, I don't think certainly I wasn't aware when the invitation was issued what was going on in the United States. And I wasn't aware until the media picked up on it, because he never said anything about it.
He never discussed with you the fact that an arrest warrant had been issued?
No.
So he came to that party knowing police were investigating him?
Well, I'm not quite sure whether was it police that were, I don't know. You see, this is the problem.
It was the
I
Palm
really
Beach
don't know.
police at the time.
But I mean, I'm afraid, you see, this is the problem, is that an awful lot of this was going on in the United States, and I wasn't a party to it, and I knew nothing about it.
In 2008, he was convicted of soliciting and procuring a minor for prostitution. He was jailed. This was your friend. How did you feel about it?
Well, I ceased contact with him after I was aware that he was under investigation, and that was later on in 2006. And I wasn't in touch with him again until 2010. So it was one of those things that if somebody's going through that sort of thing, well, I'm terribly sorry, I can't be.
So no contact?
No contact.
When he was serving time, there was no call, no letter, nothing there?
No.
He was released in July. Within months, by December of 2010, you went to stay with him at his New York mansion. Why? Why were you staying with a convicted sex offender?
Right. I have always, ever since this has happened, and since this has become, as it were, public knowledge that I was there, I've questioned myself as to why did I go, what was I doing, and was it the right thing to do? Now, I went there with the sole purpose of saying to him that because he had been convicted, it was inappropriate for us to be seen together. And I had a number of people counsel me in both directions, either to go and see him or not to go and see him. And I took the judgment call that because this was serious, and I felt that doing it over the telephone was the chicken's way of doing it. I had to go and see him and talk to him. And I went to see him, and I was doing a number of other things in New York at the time, and we had an opportunity to go for a walk in the park, and that was the conversation, coincidentally, that was photographed, which was when I said to him, I said, look, because of what has happened, I don't think it is appropriate that we should remain in contact. And by mutual agreement...
He's got actually a lot of truth in this part of the story where he talks about his reasoning on going. He's very uncomfortable with it, but he's accessing appropriate areas besides his remembered speech. He's accessing appropriate areas for other things.
During that walk in the park, we decided that we would part company, and I left, I think it was...
And that's all true. We'd part company. It's very appropriate access right there. He wanted out.
The next day, and to this day, I never had any contact with him from that day forward.
What did he say when you told him that you were breaking up the friendship?
He was what I would describe as understanding. He didn't go into any great depth in the conversation about what I was doing, or what he was doing, except to say that he'd accepted whatever it was, a plea bargain. He'd served his time, and he was carrying on with his life, you see what I mean? And I said, yes, but I'm afraid to say that's as may be. But with all the attendant scrutiny on me, then I don't think it is a wise thing to do.
Who advised you
And that part's true. So Epstein was very understanding.
then that it was a good idea to go and break up the friendship? Did that come from the palace? Was Her Majesty the Queen involved?
No. That came from, so there were a number of people so some people from my staff, some people from friends and family I was talking to.
He gets very animated when he keeps talking about this, about the palace is not involved. That was interesting, because you see when he is pinching the individuals that are in this decision making, the first one he takes out, he picks it up, he's still pinching it and puts it away. And when he does the other one to open it up and moves it, he opens that one up. That's the decision maker that he went with, which was the friends and family, not the staff.
And I took the decision that it was, I had to show leadership and I had to go and see him and I had to tell him, that's it.
That was December of 2010.
Yep.
He threw a party to celebrate his release, and you were invited as
No,
the
I didn't
guest
go.
of honour.
Oh, in 2010, there certainly wasn't a party to celebrate his release in December, because it was a small dinner party. There were only 8 or 10 of us, I think, at the dinner. If there was a party, then I'd know nothing about that.
You were invited to that dinner as a guest of honour.
Well, I was there, so there was a dinner. I don't think it was quite as you might put it, but yeah, okay, I was there at a dinner, yeah.
I'm just trying to work this out, because you said you went to break up the relationship, and yet you stayed at that New York mansion several days. I'm wondering how long.
But I was doing a number of other things while I was there.
But you were staying at the house of
Yes.
a convicted sex offender.
It was a convenient place to stay. I've gone through this in my mind so many times. At the end of the day,
You broke up the relationship, that you can't be at his beck and call, and you've worked out new terms, but you can't off your blackmailer.
with the benefit of all the hindsight that one can have, it was definitely the wrong thing to do. But at the time, I felt it was the honourable and right thing to do. And I admit fully that my judgment was probably coloured by my tendency to be too honourable, but that's just the way it is.
Because during that time, those few days, witnesses say they saw many young girls coming and going at the time. There is video footage of Epstein accompanied by young girls, and you were there staying in his house, catching up with friends.
If they were, then I wasn't a party to any of that. I never saw them. I mean, you have to understand that his house, I described it more as almost as a railway station, if you know what I mean, in the sense that there were people coming in and out of that house all the time. What they were doing and why they were there, I had nothing to do with. So I'm afraid I can't make any comment on that, because I really don't know.
Another guest was John Brockman, the literary agent. Now, he described
Really?
seeing you there getting a foot massage from a young Russian woman. Did that happen?
No.
You're absolutely sure, or
Yeah.
you can't remember?
Absolutely sure.
So John Brockman's statement is false.
Well, I don't know Mr. Brockman, so I don't know what he's talking about.
He really is such a dork. So we see the fake brain search as he comes. His head swings over slowly, exaggerations, portrayal, and his eyes swing slowly and back as well, like a slow swing in slow motion, bad TV. Portrayal. It makes me sit there and think he's so used to lying and getting away with it. Now he's fooled everyone around him, obviously his family members. And because he's been able to fool them, it's just continued into adulthood. And why wouldn't you go on TV? You fool everyone else. Because people don't become liars like this overnight. Usually when your lies are confronted constantly as a child and into adulthood, and you're one of those habitual liars, you get better at it, not worse.
But that definitely wasn't you getting a foot massage from a Russian girl in Jeffrey Epstein's house.
No.
And then he's in portrayal. Let's call it cookies and not think of the disgusting. So you steal cookies all the time, and the person who helps you steal the cookies got caught. And you're trying to stay clean because you don't want to be implicated in the cookie stealing. Because the cookie thief is hot right now. So somebody comes at you. Now you've stolen cookies. An innocent person would get angry, hurt, some emotion. It wouldn't be confused. I'm not confused. My eyebrows don't come in to touch each other because I'm confused for something I didn't do, because that doesn't make any sense. And apparently confused is everyone's favorite one to be when they don't know how to be.
So why wouldn't you announce this breakup when you got back? Why wouldn't you publicly explain what you'd done? Did you worry that he had something that could compromise you?
No.
Do you regret that trip?
No, that same look that we saw prior is there again. Confusion. Were you worried that you'd off your blackmailer and he'd leak some stuff? No, I'm not worried about that at all. Lots of blinking, extreme stress.
Yes.
Do you regret the whole friendship with Epstein?
Now, still not. And the reason being is that the people that I met and the opportunities that I was given to learn, either by him or because of him, were actually very useful. He himself...
That's very telling. He's being very honest with you in that one. All those people that he met, either by him or through him, he's learned something very useful.
Epstein was arrested on charges of sex trafficking and abusing dozens of underage girls. One of Epstein's accusers, Virginia Roberts, has made allegations against you. She says she met you in 2001. She says she dined with you, danced with you at Tramp nightclub in London. She went on to have sex with you in a house in Belgravia belonging to...
Okay, that's all true. He's funny when he gets really, really confronted. Virginia Roberts. It's like a deer in headlight moment. Because liars who aren't very good at it don't know how to act, and one of their things, those we went over, is to look confused. The other one that's really bad that they do is they just sit there in deer in headlights moment. I don't know what to do or how to act. I'm stressed. You can see it in his forehead. He's extremely still, and the eyes are just straight ahead. So the brain is going 1,000,000 miles a minute, trying to figure this out. How do I get out? How do I get out? How do I get out? The deer in headlights moment. Because an innocent person would definitely be stressed over being accused of something like this. That's normal. Stress is normal for that. But emotions come with that too. Sometimes it's anger. Sometimes it's shock. Sometimes it's hurt feelings. But not that I'm going to stare blankly and try to figure out how to get out.
Ghislaine Maxwell, your friend. Your response?
I have no recollection of ever meeting this lady.
We're just playing with our fingers.
None whatsoever.
You don't remember meeting her?
No.
She says she met you in 2001. She dined with you. She danced with you. You bought her drinks. You were in Tramp nightclub in London.
And you see the positiveness with this headshake as she lists this?
And she went on to have sex with you in a house in Belgravia belonging to Ghislaine Maxwell.
So this is some really damning accusations, and we see a lot of positive head movement with it. Remember, we keep talking about Epstein, even his marriage. So apparently had negative on the marriage. Epstein himself was just negative. Everything Epstein negative. But this girl, Miss Roberts at the time, she's positive. Positive, you got positive head movements, positive head movements. And I find that kind of funny, especially for his personality type. Negative Epstein and all the hell that came with it. But this one girl gets a positive constantly. So that would say that his mind looks onto her in a positive way. There's stress with it. And my best metaphor for that one is a stolen puppy. You stole a puppy, but you love that puppy. It's a sweet puppy.
Didn't happen.
Do you remember her?
No. I have no recollection of ever meeting her. I'm convinced that I was never in Tramps with her. There are a number of things that are wrong with that story. One of which is that I don't know where the bar is in Tramps. I don't drink. I don't think I've ever bought a drink in Tramps whenever I was there.
Do you remember dancing at Tramp?
No. That couldn't have happened because the date that is being suggested, I was at home with the children.
You know that you were...
That's funny because this video is so close up on his face. You can literally see his eyebrows just wiggling. Stress, stress, stress.
In a legal deposition, 2015, she said she had sex with you 3 times. Once in a London house when she was trafficked to you in Maxwell's house.
Yes.
Once in New York a month or so later at Epstein's mansion, and once on his private island in a group of 7 or 8 other girls.
No.
No to all of it?
All of it. Absolutely no to all of it.
Why would she be saying those things?
We wonder exactly the same, but I have no...
There's an emotional aspect to that. You see where the eyes went. It's an emotional aspect. Remember that positiveness he gave to Virginia Roberts when she first came out, the constant head positive? Now we see there's an emotional attachment.
Epstein was found dead.
Yep.
In prison.
Yes.
In August of this year.
Yep.
Even from the behind camera, we can see now the positive movement is coming with Epstein. Epstein was found dead. Yep, positive. Positive. And then when we see the front, the lips are pursed. It's like they've become tight. Now, this isn't saying he did it or had any knowledge of it, but there's positive to it, at least in his mind, for Epstein's death.
What was your response on hearing that he'd died?
Shock.
And so shock releases the tension in the mouth. You see a little bit more movement besides just the word shock coming out.
Some people think that he didn't take his own life.
Well, there again, I'm not one to be able to answer that question.
There again, head moves all the way to the other side. We're closing our eyes. We're hiding. So we have positive associated with Epstein death. We have avoidance.
I believe that centers around something to do with a bone in his...
Now we're going to fake confusion, because when you're confused, one, you don't hold a particular part of your body for that long, and we don't come at you from the side. So I'm confused, and are you buying it that I'm confused? We're going to wrap this up. And as the Epstein fallout continues, it's going to be interesting to see whose behaviors start to change, either from freedom or a new blackmailer.
If you'd like to learn more about analysing body language, there is a video course available on Mandy's website for Gold subscribers, where Mandy teaches more about her techniques of deception detection. There's also other content such as the Crime series and Interesting Minds series, available to both Gold and Silver subscribers.
If you like it, please share and subscribe. Thanks for watching.